Hi, I'm Chuck Dorsett for Weaver Leather Supply, and this is the Leather Element. If you've got a good question for us or a good idea for a leather element, drop it in the comment box below. We're going to talk about letter stamps, and I almost feel like I can hear a big collective groan. If you've ever dealt with letter stamps, we've either gotten one crooked or worse, upside down, and we can instantly destroy a project. Now, we've done a video on this in the past, but we've gotten a lot of questions and comments lately. So let's see if we can add a little confidence to our letter stamps. There's an easy fix for both problems. But also, if you've got an inexpensive set, you've got two problems right off the bat. So let's take a look at those, then we'll set some letter stamps, see if this helps. I've got two letter sets here, so we're going to get a good side-by-side comparison between cheap and quality. Now, same type style, same size. This is from Weaver. This is a set I picked up a number of years ago. Now, I don't think I've ever used this set. First off, they're still in order. But secondly, and you'll know what I mean, they're all here. Now, the two biggest problems right here, I can pick up any letter in this box. Notice right there, notice how much extra steel. Let's get a good close-up of that. Notice how much extra steel is left on the edge of the letter. That has not been polished off. So what we're going to do is when we stamp these, we're going to stack these next to each other. There is no way those are going to be straight. And in fact, the D, I think this is the worst in the box because I've got extra metal on the bottom left, extra metal on the top right. So if I try to butt any letter next to that, they're going to be crooked. So right off the bat, there's our first problem. Now, we can always sand that extra metal off, but we've got to do that on every one of these tools. Second big problem with our setter. Let's pick any letter. Let's drop that setter in there. Look at how much play there is in that tool head or that stamp head. That is never going to be a consistent stamp for us, okay? Let's step over to the Weaver set. I cannot find a single tool in here that doesn't have cleaned edges. So when we stack these together, that is going to be a perfect fit, very consistent. Now, on our post, let's see how this works. Snaps in, look at that. No movement on that head whatsoever. That's going to create a very consistent, clean stamp. Okay, so we've got those two problems knocked out. Let's step over to our punch table and set some letters. The two biggest problems with letter stamps, like I mentioned earlier, first off is getting our stamp straight. Getting a stamp crooked is very frustrating and it's going to stand out like a sore thumb, particularly to us. We're going to take care of that. It's an easy fix. The second and more embarrassing problem, in my opinion, and we've all done it, is getting our stamp upside down. There's an easy fix here. On every letter stamp set I've ever seen, right at the bottom, there's some type of a mark. Here's a good close-up. We've got an arrow on our stamp. So as long as I can see that arrow, I no longer worry that my stamp is right side up. And in fact, it's relatively easy to see. On the smaller letter stamps, and I love these. This is both letters and numbers. So these are great, say if we want to drop in some initials or maybe stamping the sizing on a belt. Love these, clean type style. But with these, smaller, much harder to get right. Well, actually not really. So here's a close up here. On the bottom left, we've got a small knob there. Very easy to see. So again, as long as that knob is bottom left, I know my stamp is right side up. Now, on our leather, I haven't technically cased our leather. I have simply wet it. The point here is that we need consistent moisture across our leather, because if we're dry over here and wet over here, our stamp on this end is going to be light. Over here, it's actually going to be mushy. So therefore, consistent moisture across, okay? Let's line up a stamp. So we're going to use this. This is called bar stock. It is simply a bar of steel, and any hardware store has these. What I like about this, first off, it's got some good weight to it. It's not going to damage my leather, but I can feel that weight. Secondly, it's a good thick piece of bar stock. It's about 1/8 of an inch, maybe a little bit more. So my letter stamps are going to sit against that comfortably. Now, what I want to do is wet my leather, set that aside, let it dry some, but I want to dry off my marble because I'm going to use some painter's tape. Now, we can measure this anywhere we want. This is 1 1/4 inch thick. So basically, I'm going to come in 1 1/4 inch. Or if we want to come in 2 inches or whatever, we can simply measure that out. But just for this demo, let's go 1 1/4 inches in. Now, we dried our marble out because we're going to drop some tape down. Now, with this, I don't want to try to get the tape right to the edge. I want to stretch that tape out. There we go. Same on this side. Let's stretch that. Now, look at that. That is good and solid, but it's not enough to damage the leather. So now, let's see. Let's drop in Chuck. And there's a K. So let's start with our C. I'm going to put my stamp post in it. Let's find our arrow. There it is. And let's drop that right in. Now, I'm not pressing against my bar stock here. It's pretty secure. But let's try not to press against that in case we've got a long way to go. So let's take our stamp. Now, two ways we can do this. We can go lighter and we can work our stamp around. That's going to make this a little more consistent. Or as long as we've got a good straight shot, as long as we can hit that straight on, we're going to get some good consistency. That's exactly what we're looking for. And we'll get a little better look at this here very shortly. Okay, next step. Let's take our C, drop it back in, and I can feel that drop right back in that original C. Now, what we can do, if I'm a little light over here, I can always drop my C back in. Let's drop our C in first, then drop in our post, and I can lean my stamp a little bit this way and maybe give it a light tap. The only point there is we're trying to get these to be very consistent. Secondly, there's our H. Want to make sure I'm right side up. Let's drop that in right next to that stamp. So right off the bat, we can see why it's important to have very clean edges on our stamps. Good, clean and consistent. Let's drop that back in. Next, U. Now, we've got a C here. We need to use our C twice, but I can always lift that out and drop that in. One good point, say we've got two E's. We can always literally put our finger right down at the end of the last E and drop our new E in right there. That's going to keep a consistent distance. And last, our K. Very nice. I'm clean and I'm consistent. The depth of each letter is consistent. I know I keep wanting to say leather stamps. There we go. We can peel that back. Now, no problems with lines, marks. That is clean, consistent, all the way across. Now, what we can do, say we're going to drop in, just say 3 initials down here in the bottom right. All we have to do is come in from the top because we can always butt against the top side and I can feel that sit clean on there. We can butt to either side of our straight edge, whatever works. So therefore, easy enough to do. I've got 2 samples over here of things that we can add to this. So let's take a look at those. When we think of stamps, we typically are thinking on the utility side, and we do this a lot with leather. Not pointing fingers here, I'm the same way. So what we can do is always drop in some measurements, sizing, right, left, or maybe a couple of initials. That'd look clean and crisp on, say, a business card or credit card case. Right here, we can drop our phone number in on our pet's collar. That, to a pet owner, is worth its weight in gold. But we don't necessarily think on the creative side. This is just starting to scratch the surface. But we can drop in 1 letter stamp, an initial. We can certainly decorate around that with all manner of border stamps or creative geometric stamps. We can decorate around the letter itself. Now, right here, this is cool. We can drop in some very creative border stamp, which again, sky's the limit there. Then we can center our letter stamps in between our border stamp. This to me is one of the best ways to go. Now, I've seen a couple of belts like this, and I'm dying to make one for myself. But let's do our letter stamp, and then let's do a filigree cut around that. Is that not beautiful and very creative? It's a little tough to do, but we can certainly do it, and we've got a great video on the filigree cuts. So again, when we start to look at the utility steps in leathercraft, there's no end to the creative possibilities. If we can get utility and creativity to meet, There's no telling what's going to happen. In fact, we're going to have a good time doing it. So I hope this will give us a little bit of confidence with the letter stamps, but at the same time, I hope this opens up a whole new direction for creativity. Thanks for taking time to watch The Leather Element. Good luck with your projects.